trust everybody else is happy to be here. Our topic is not a happy topic. Our topic tonight is all about fear and anxiety, which is probably not, a very inspirational topic, but I do believe it's absolutely critical that we talk about it. I actually chose a different topic for tonight earlier. But I had a chat with Leslie and she said, no, you need to talk about this topic. And I said, yes, ma'am, I shall follow. I shall. And she's right in choosing the topic because it's a relevant topic. And the reason it's a relevant topic is simply if we look at what's happening globally, not just in South Africa, not just Africa, not just us, not just in the coaching industry. If we look at what's happening globally, the world is going into stress. The stress and anxiety statistics has gone absolutely through the roof. And unless everybody that's part of put your hand in the air, become part of stress statistics in the world has gone through the roof. Unless we do something about it, then who else is going to do something about it? So I tend to take accountability for what's happening around the world. So I did a bit of research, and there's a couple of places with different statistics. One of the platforms is Global Health Data Exchange and the World Health Organization. All these guys are producing statistics at the moment, and a lot of the statistics are around mental health that's happening and what's happening in mental health around the world. And the reason for that is merely the absolute effect that COVID has had on us globally, lockdown. And I mean, you guys all know the sort of the nonsense that happened. Can I call it nonsense? Not that COVID was nonsense, but the effect of it. So statistically, we've had in the last 2 years a 25% worldwide increase in anxiety and stress and fear. 25%. Now, what does that really mean? Well, statistically, in the world at the moment, 7.3% of people have been formally diagnosed with anxiety. I'm talking about formal diagnosis. 7.3%. Doesn't sound like a big percentage, does it? Well, if we consider how many people actually go in and see a psychologist and go for treatment, then that number becomes relevant because less than 30% of people that suffer from extreme levels of anxiety and stress and fear actually go for diagnosis. So if we say only 7.3% of people have been formally diagnosed, that's actually a very, very high percentage considering how many people go for treatment. But that's a formal diagnosis. So we're not only talking about formal diagnosis, we have to look at how many people are suffering from it around the world. And does anybody have any idea how many people? Let's just do a quick poll. If we say 50% of the world population at the moment, either 50% is the marker line. Who thinks it's below 50% and who thinks it's above 50%? So if you think the number is below 50%, just put a hand in the air and let's have a look. Who thinks it's below 50% worldwide that people are actually struggling with anxiety, stress, and fear at the moment? Who thinks it's above 50%? Put a hand in the air. Let's get an idea. All right. The actual accurate statistic at the moment is 63% of the world population is experiencing increased levels and high levels of anxiety, fear, and obviously with it comes one of the results is a bit of depression. 63%. Of that 63%, over 60% of that group are female. I looked at it and I went, wow, it was, you see, historically our brains go, well, it's the man, he's the breadwinner. He's got to be the one that's handling the stress. Well, my first question came into my mind, why female? The answer was quite simple, because females have gone through emancipation. Your roles have changed. You've started your own world of being empowered, truly empowered. So viva female power. Come on. But with that, you're still carrying the house. You're still looking after the kids. You're still making sure that the kids go to school and everybody's fed. You're still running all those stuff and you empowered yourself. So what's happened? You've got an extra load. So ladies, tonight, it's for you. That's okay, because I do believe you deserve it. Not the stress, but the help. over 60% of the total group of people that are struggling with anxiety and fear at the moment are females. That's a scary number. We need to do something about it. The second interesting statistic is the age group. And the age group of people struggling is the age group between 30 and 44 years of age. 30 and 44 years of age. Now, why is that a scary statistic? It's a scary statistic because if we look at the generation that's supposed to be the most productive, the most effective for the world economy, it is in the 30 to 44 year age group. So what is happening around the world at the moment is that, and I want to use the word, our true economic empowerment age gap worldwide, globally, are the people that's struggling the most with stress and anxiety. Why is that relevant? It's relevant because that's our hope for tomorrow. That's our hope for the future. These are the guys on which we are, I want to say, building our world. So it is absolutely critical. The question is quite simple. Is it a problem? Yes, it is. Who's going to fix the problem? Not the person with stress or anxiety or fear. We can approach them. And I know some of you guys have probably heard this before. There is a trick apparently that some people use. I don't believe it does. I'll tell you the trick. Please don't use it. And the trick is quite simple. If someone has got stress and anxiety, you just tell them to calm down. Apparently it doesn't work. Anybody ever been there where you're in an anxiety state and you're fearful and you're stressed up and it feels like your head's going, so just calm down. Just calm down. It sort of increases a little bit, doesn't it? So let's look at how to fix it. You guys want to know how to fix it? So I tested this on a couple of clients, and that's the reason I'm going to explain the process to you guys tonight. It's not a simplistic process. It's actually a process that if you do it properly, you're probably looking at a time frame of between 2 and 3 months with your client. Why 2 to 3 months? Well, you need to understand how stress is formed. So on the surface, the early stage of stress and anxiety is quite easily handled by most people. And the way most people tend to handle it is by putting on a mask. We put on a mask of politeness, of political correctness, of niceness, a false form of, I'm okay. If anybody asks you how you're going, we tend to respond, 100%, thank you, great, amazing, wonderful. And we tend to suppress some of the below the surface issues that we are having in life. And that mask doesn't really help because it's merely just absolutely just hiding what's really happening on the inside. And what happens on the inside when we start facing quite high levels of stress and anxiety is the internal dialogue inside of our brain starts to change. The way we think, the things we think about, and those things we do think about, we start thinking about them differently. We start thinking more about possible events of the future that can go wrong than drawing on great experiences from the past. Then we live less in the moment, and we start projecting ourselves into a very strange and weird kind of future that we start creating in our internal dialogue for ourselves. And that in itself has its own problem, because what it literally starts doing is starts rewiring the whole neural network and how your brain functions. So it's quite easy for someone to go from a very positive kind of person, upbeat, with a positive outlook on life, enthusiastic, quite passionate, to move from that when stress, anxiety, and fear, and probably good reasons to have a little bit of fear, comes into their lives. If it's consistent over a year to 2 years' time, and it's not dealt with, then the internal dialogue changes, the way the brain thinks starts to change, and the neuron network, the way the brain functions, starts to change. So someone that's exposed to it over a prolonged time frame could experience a form of personality shift. We've seen that happen to others. Who knows what I'm talking about? Yeah. It's almost, I want to use the word, it's almost like a cancer. It grows, it grows, it grows, it grows. And it's only when it gets to a level where it creates a problem that we want to start doing something about it. Most people don't act in the beginning stages of anxiety or a high level of consistent fear. They leave it believing that history will repeat itself, which basically means things will get better. We got all these wonderful sayings, and I know one of my favorites for myself years ago was the wheel always turns. Who said that? Who's had that word come out of your mouth to someone that was struggling with a bit of anxiety or fear or something else? The wheel always turns. Don't worry. It'll come right. The wheel always turns. Yes, the wheel turns, but the wheel needs energy to turn. So how do I coach my client? How do I assist a family member? How do I take someone through a process to start rewiring the brain? Now, here's the key. There is no quick fix for extreme levels of anxiety or people that are living in constant fear. There's no quick fix. You need to understand the brain has now been wired in a certain way. Imagine in your own house, an electrician comes in and it changes all the wires from the switches where they are now. So when you walk into the bathroom, the switch is next to the door. When you flip that switch, all of a sudden the bathroom light doesn't go on anymore. The kitchen light goes on. And when you put the kitchen light on, the lounge light or your bedroom light goes on. Every light you switch on, all of a sudden a different room starts going on. But here's the strange thing about it. Every time you start flipping switches, they move. So today, this switch might put on that room, but tomorrow it's going to switch on a different room. That's the rewiring that happens in the brain when you're exposed to long-term anxiety and stress. We need to realize that. So when we want to try and fix it, it's not a matter of just relax, just flip out of it. Just come on, man, just smile. It's not that easy. It's not that quick. We need to go through a process of rewiring that entire network that's now got confused. Does that make sense? Yes? So earlier I said it's roughly, is that burnout as well? Good question, Ashel. It's very similar. So burnout is one of the results of exposed anxiety, stress, and a little bit of overwork, not taking care of your body. But the result of it, very, very similar. So how do we do it? The first thing we need to do is we need to realize that we're going to take time with a client. And guys, I said this earlier, it's a 2 to 3 month process. Why 2 to 3 months? Because rewiring the neurons takes time. Shifting a belief is instantaneous. Changing an emotional state is instantaneous. But rewiring your neural network takes time. It takes time. When you're young, you could speak many languages, or you could learn language quite fast. Because part of your neuron wiring was in place to learn language. Now, who of you guys tried to learn language quite recently? It's quite tough. And the reason is just because those neurons are not functioning that way anymore. It's been rewired. So to learn a new language, you've got to rewire your brain first and then start learning the language. To get out of stress and anxiety and fear, you need to rewire your brain first. And that takes 2 to 3 months. So how do we do it? We start off quite simply by making a simplistic list of things we enjoy doing, fun things, things that allow us to relax, that allows things we enjoy doing, things that we can do quite easily without huge expenses. What type of things and how many things should we have? You need to get your client to make a list of a minimum, or the perfect number really is 20. 20 things. Things like what? Taking a bubble bath. Oh, yeah. Talking to someone you enjoy having a calm discussion with. A calm discussion. Not someone that's going to talk about all the theories on TikTok and YouTube. I'm talking a calm discussion about nice things. Oils, what do you call them? Aromatherapy, yoga. I just made a list of a few. work in the garden, meditate, dancing, listening to music, eating healthy, go for walks, all kinds of things that we aspire. Oh, yeah. Okay. Thanks for the invite, Elke. All the kinds of things we enjoy, you need to get them to make a list of 20. 20. That's step one. Step two. Once they've got their list, they want to put the list in sequence. Now, here's an interesting thing. Tell the client to put the list in a sequence that to them feels natural. Don't overthink it. Don't overcomplicate it. Let them put it into a sequence. So they've got 20 things they can possibly do. Some of them they've tried, some of them they've not tried. And they put them in a sequence. Now you've got your sequence of 20 things sorted. Ideally, what you want to do is probably put them on individual sheets or pieces of paper. Split them up. Next thing. You guys ready? You need to get the client to commit to exploring each one per day, one per day, for 20 consecutive days. So they've got them in a sequence. So every day, all they need to do is just explore one. So let's assume it's meditation. And on day 3, they do meditation. Possibly they've done it before. Maybe it's the first time they've ever done it. We don't know. If they enjoyed it, if it worked for them, they're allowed to carry it with. Now, what's going to happen over the 20 days? Over the 20 days, they're going to start, 2 things are happening here. One, the obvious, they're going to start finding out what helps to relax them, what makes them calm, what brings them into a space of peace and tranquility. Second thing that's happening, and this is what they won't necessarily know, but you as a coach will. It's starting to trigger little events in the brain. It's starting to stimulate the brain and saying, there's good things, there's a good thing, there's a good thing, there's a relaxing moment, there's something different, there's something else, there's something you can do. And it's almost like an extra stimulant that's going to help the neuron network. And I'm excited you said that. And it's going to start stimulating the RAS. You remember the RAS, reticular activating system, right? 20 days long. What happens after the 20 days? After 20 days, they'll probably end up with 3 to 5 that they like doing on a regular basis. 3 to 5 they like doing on a regular basis. If you want to, you can add, it's not a have to, you can add every 5 days, you can add a little bit of a celebration process. So a self-reward, go eat a slab of chocolate, go have a great meal, go for a jog, go do something fun. You can add a bit of a celebration in there. You guys still with me? Now, after 20 days, we're going to repeat the same process with a spin. Why repeat the same process? Because the brain loves patterns. It loves repetition. Remember, in the meantime, they've now picked up 3 or 4 or 5 of these behaviors that they enjoy doing. They've started doing more of it on a regular basis, but they're also exploring a new one every day for 20 days consecutively, right? Can you see what's happening to the brain already? How we're starting to create new patterns. Now we want to do it again for 20 days because the brain likes repetition. It loves patterns. It loves the sequence of repeating. The moment we repeat something, the brain tends to embrace it a little bit more. I've done it before. It's going to be easier now. But we do it with a twist. And what's a twist? The second time they do it, they need to find something inside of the experience that brings new meaning. And I use the word new meaning. New meaning to what? New meaning to them. Something personal, possibly spiritual, maybe on a soul level, an epiphany came. So every time they do it now, the second time, they need to focus when they do the activity. And it's a simple concept. My sentence I love using is, ask it what gift it brings. Ask it what is its purpose and its teaching to you. I like getting my clients to talk to these experiences. I'm taking a bubble bath. Ask a bubble bath. What experience does it bring to you? It adds more bubbles to my life. Well, while you're in the bath, not always a good statement, but you know what that means, right? So some of you guys got that one. Some just shower, you don't bath, you don't know. All right. You repeat it a second time, but this time they need to look for a personal message, something on a spiritual level or on a soul level, a slightly deeper level that they did the first time. What is the benefit of this? The benefit is they're now taking their brains, teaching their brains to focus on the experience, to be in the moment while it's happening. It changes the way the brain is aware. Now, let me just explain this quickly. Stress and anxiety is a future-based disease. In other words, we have stress and anxiety about a potential something that can happen in the future. When it becomes overwhelming, we stop living in the present. The brain unlearns how to enjoy the moment. If we take them the second time through the sequence and we get them to become very much aware of the message, it's not necessarily about the message. You and I know that, they don't. What is it about? It is about getting them to be in the moment, to learn to embrace that experience, to focus on it, to enjoy it in that moment. What's the benefit of that? It starts to change the internal dialogue. It starts to shift the RAS. It changes the wiring of the brain. It changes the things, it stimulates the brain. It alters the way the brain gets aroused, and by the things it gets aroused. Pulls the brain out of only living in the future where fear exists into the present where we can have more hope, where we can have more joy, and we can have more bliss. Does that make sense, guys? You see the strategy behind this. So now what? Now you need to measure, has there been a change in your client? This is a critical stage after you've done the second phase. Measure, is there change? How do you measure? Put it through conversation. If they start telling you, you know, I'm every day now, and there's an excitement in their voice. Every day now, I'm meditating. Every day now, I'm taking bubble baths and I'm farting in the bath, making more bubbles, and it's so much fun. Every day now, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. If there's an excitement, an enthusiasm, a passion about some of the exercises, at least 3 of them, preferably about 5, then you can go to the next phase. If they're still a little bit struggling around it, I will repeat the previous step. Let them do it again. Look for the deeper personal, inspirational, spiritual message. All right. One of the things you can do, if they're in a good state, is you can get them to create a gratitude board. Some of you guys have heard me talk about a gratitude board before. What is a gratitude board? It's very similar to a vision board, but a vision board is always about things in your future. It's what you want. A gratitude board is what's in your past and in your present. What am I grateful for now? So they can literally, as they go through the experience, if you want to do it a third time, you can get them to start creating a gratitude board with images. So you literally take images of these experiences and you put it on the board. What does it do? Again, it's just a constant reminder that they see, and the constant reminder creates patterns and awareness, and it stimulates the RAS, so it finds more proof of and confirmation of. Yep. So a gratitude board sometimes is very nice. A lot of people do gratitude boards on a single board, but you can also do a gratitude board spread throughout your house. Ooh. I love gratitude boards spread throughout the house. How do we do that? Photos, pictures. My grandchild was here the other day. Some of you guys know they live in the Netherlands, and I haven't seen them in about 3 years. And she turned 7 on the 28th of February, and she was here with grandpa. And when she was young, with my kids and my grandchild, I've got a very silly thing. When they get bored at an early age, I put their feet in my mouth, and it's a man thing, I don't know. I like to then measure up until what age can I fit their feet into my mouth. I don't know. Anybody else does that? It's something weird. I don't know. So listen, by the time they get so old, their feet are so big you can't put it in. That's the time it gets dirty. But up to then, I don't. It's a weird thing. It's been in our family. We do it. But anyway, my grandchild came to visit us for the first time in 3 years of Sheila. So she drew me a picture. I don't know if you guys can see it. Of a fruit. Now, what is a gratitude board? I don't know if you guys can see my smile. I just love this. I love my grandchild. It just brings joy to me. It's humorous. It's fun. This is what goes onto a gratitude board. So how do I do it? Well, she just drew a normal picture. You notice, I don't know if you guys can see, it's shiny. I laminated it. And I put it on my desk. Next, on my bedside table, there's something else. In every room of the house, I've got different things that I'm grateful for. So I have a spread gratitude board. I spread it throughout the house. So every room I go into, there's something that makes me happy. So once you've done the 20 with your client, you can start finding things that they're grateful for and let them start building a gratitude board. All right. Now we need to go through to the third level. What is the third level? It's not a repeat of the previous. If your client is now drawing on the 20 things and they are repeating between 3 and 5 of them that they're now installing in their lives, now it's absolutely critical that we rewrite their future. It's critical that we rewrite the future at this stage. How do we rewrite someone's future? With a goal plan. With an absolutely smart, simple, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. A great goal plan. Broken down, ideally, in no more than 2-week window frames for each step of achievement. Each step of achievement with an absolute clear measure, each step of achievement with an absolute definite celebration. Self-reward celebration. What is the benefit of that? Literally what I mentioned earlier. We are rewriting their future. Where does fear, anxiety, and stress live? Does it live in the past? No. Does it live in the future? Like in the present? Does it live in the present? No. It actually lives in the future, but we experience it in the now because the subconscious cannot differentiate between the three. So it experiences in the now and becomes an emotion, it becomes a physical response, becomes a chemical response in the body. In fact, if you live under it too long, you will go to the doctor more often. Way more often. Way more often. In fact, between 3 and 5 times more than someone that doesn't have stress and anxiety. So we rewrite their future. The moment we rewrite their future, what are we installing? What is the opposite of anxiety and fear? Hope and enthusiasm and passion. So if we can write a proper goal plan that is achievable, that excites them, doesn't have to be a work-related one, can be a hobby-related one, can be a let me get fit a related one. Let me get into a new relationship. Let me increase my friendship group. Let me, I don't know, get more socially active. There's a variety of things that can be done inside of the goal plan, but there's got to be something in the future that's achievable inside of their capability. Now, here's the critical thing. One of the reasons that they're most probably experiencing a lot of stress and anxiety is financial. Because that's what lockdown brought. A lot of people lost their jobs, income was cut, a lot of relationships, husband and wives, or 2 partners in a relationship. One lost the job, the other one was cut in half. So they had to try and make a living with less income. Some people started selling off their assets. And, well, we all know what's going on, right? Let's not ignore what's going on. There are people that are seriously struggling. So there's a strong probability that the reason they're in a whole lot of stress and anxiety at the moment is financial. So when you design the goal plan, you absolutely have to ensure that it's not going to increase financial stress and anxiety. In other words, it's got to be an extremely affordable thing for them to do. It has to be within a comfortable sphere of utilizing the existing resources. That's why I mentioned earlier, even if it's just increasing their friendship group, even if it's just getting fitter, even if it's just going for, walks more often or cycling or recreating the garden just by moving the existing plants around, doesn't matter what it is. There's got to be something in their future that they can achieve within their comfort zone. It can be a little bit challenging on the personal skill level and maybe a discipline level, but not financial. Very, very, very important. Especially if one of the main reasons they're in that state is the financial one. They have to have a celebration from a good measure in there. And that has to happen at least every 2 weeks. And ideally, the time frame for the goal plan shouldn't be less than 6 months. So you want to do one that's probably 6 months to about a year. Why so long, Dion? Because you've got to stop the negative wiring. You've got to halt it. You've got to turn it around, and you've got to rewire it completely different again. We're not talking about shifting the emotional state. We're not talking about shifting the belief. What we are talking about is altering the neuron pathways inside of the brain. And that takes consistency, repetition, and time. It has to grow. Its neuron network is a physical thing that needs to grow and develop. And it only grows and develops if it's absolutely comfortable that it's going to be reused and reused and reused. So I'm going to go back to the story of learning language. Let me just explain how neural networks work. When you were young, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, you needed to learn to talk. And you learned to talk in a very short time frame. You learn to speak possibly 1, maybe 2, and some people 3 or 4 languages. And you picked up the languages quite quickly. 20, 30 years later, you try and learn a new language. What happens? We try to learn a new language quite recently. It's quite tough. The reason it's quite tough is because your brain did not use those neuron pathways anymore. When they don't get used, the brain prunes them. The brain's natural mechanism of functionality is if something is reused, it'll strengthen it. If it's not being used, it cuts it out. It deletes it. It removes it out of the brain. Those neuron pathways literally die and go. Not in the bubble bath. We go somewhere else. So what do we need to do? We need to get the brain to regrow new neuron paths. And that takes approximately a year to about 2 years. So the first phase is to stop the stress and anxiety from becoming too or more overwhelming than it is. It's literally like putting up a handbrake. And the second phase of the goal and ensuring they go through that process for that 6 months to a year is to get those pathways to regrow. Once they start regrowing and there's a shift and the internal dialogue changes and their consistent state changes, then those pathways will sustain themselves and keep growing because now the RAS is activated. They'll find more things to be positive about. If they are more positive, if they are enjoying life better, more, they will probably make better decisions and start thinking differently. And very often they're more effective and efficient in their lives. So there's better results coming towards them. And that also will stimulate the growth of the new neurons. Make sense, guys? You understand that process? I know. NLP is come and see me for one session and I'll fix you and I'll sort you. This specific process does take longer. This specific process does need a little bit of TLC. It needs love, it needs tenderness, it needs care. So, yeah. Well, if you don't believe me, you can try saying to them, just snap out of it and see what happens.